All right, let's start. So hello, I'm Katerina from the Bookery. You probably are aware that we supply English teaching and learning resources, both print and online. Throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, please just pop them in the chat and we will have a look at them at the end. And okay. All right, so today we're of course here to talk about study skills and study skill success from Clarity English. Clarity English specialize in online teaching and learning resources for English, and Bookery, we've worked with them for over 20 years. So the first part of the presentation, we'll have with us Adrian Raper, who's the Technical Director of Clarity English. He's going to talk about the 3 key academic challenges that students face when starting university. Then following that, there will be Charlotte Kwok, who's the specialist for ICT at Clarity, and she will show us how study skill success can address some of these challenges and support students. So thank you, and over to you, Adrian.
Thank you, Katerina, and good morning. Good morning. Now, I made the jump from school to university back in 1983. It was a big shock. I discovered I had to look after myself, make my own food, get my washing done, keep myself clean and healthy. I also had to study in a completely different way. It was way more challenging than I had expected. All my friends found the same thing. Some people really found it hard to cope. But that was 40 years ago. Ancient history. Things must have changed by now, right? Well, let's have a look at what a student who's at university in the UK at the moment, in 2021, has to say about it.
Hi, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
My name's Irvin. I come from Hong Kong, and I'm now studying at Coventry University in the UK. I went to an international school, so English has never really been a problem for me. But I really underestimated how different it is to be studying at school and studying at university.
It's interesting that you say that. What do you think were the biggest differences when you first went to university?
Well, there are day-to-day problems like managing my budget, or what happens if I get sick, or just living away from home and cooking for myself for the first time. And studying at university is totally different. You've got to have a lot of discipline for a start. And my school did absolutely nothing to help me prepare for any of this, which I think is pretty bad.
Right, so things haven't actually changed at all. Now, probably the reason that you've come to this webinar is that you know that most schools and universities really ought to be doing a better job at helping students bridge this gap. And in the webinar, we're going to focus not on the social challenges, but on the academic challenges. And I'm going to look at 3 examples of how universities are helping. I thought I'd look outside Australia for these, as you're probably familiar with the home-based sites. There's some good material from the University of Waterloo in Canada, from Edinburgh University in Scotland, and the University of Ohio in America. But all these are primarily aimed at native speakers. So Charlotte's also going to take you through some aspects of Clarity's own academic study skills course, Study Skills Success. This is especially useful because of all the resources we're going to look at. It's the only one that's aimed at learners of English. Okay, so imagine your new overseas students have turned up at university on the first day of term. And here's a quotation from a head of department that I went to university with, who's still a good friend. There are basically two types of first years: those who are ready to study independently and those who aren't. And this gets to the heart of the problem, because the biggest difference between school and university is the level of support that a student can expect. At school, a student's maybe in a class of 20 or 30, and at school, students see most of their teachers every day. At university, classes are going to be much bigger, and you might be lucky to see some of your tutors or lecturers once a term. But there's something else as well. First year students suddenly find that the work they're faced with is much more difficult than it was at school. Why? Well, they're working at a whole new level. They're specializing. And that means that the concepts they're exploring are much more complex. They take time to sink in. The assignments are going to be more demanding. There's going to be the complexity of the content and the scope of the project, but also the format in which you have to produce output your assignments. And of course, as we've seen, students aren't going to get the level of support that they've been used to. They're going to find they are on their own pretty quickly. So no wonder it's challenging. Our job is to help them push through this transition and emerge more confident on the other side. And the number one challenge was that one that we identified earlier, being able to study independently. What does that actually mean in practice? It's useful to break it down into individual skills. So we'll look at three. The first one is critical thinking. Now, Edinburgh University runs an Institute for Academic Development, which has a really useful website. It will link to it from the webinar page which Charlotte will tell you about at the end. And there's a whole section on critical thinking. And here's just one thing that they say about why critical thinking is important. Being critical goes beyond describing what you've heard in lectures or what you've read. It involves synthesizing, analyzing, and evaluating what you've learned to develop your own argument or position. So students are engaging with material in specific ways, synthesizing, analyzing, evaluating. Ooh. Again, what does that mean? How are students supposed to learn to do this? And clearly it's our task to help students understand what they've got to do. Now, incidentally, if you take a look at the Edinburgh University page, with this as an example, you'll see the language is challenging. So you're going to have to decide whether it's accessible to any of your or all of your international students. So the first skill is critical thinking and helping them do that. Secondly, building resourcefulness. Also has obvious links with critical thinking. You've got a problem, it's up to you to solve it. How? So one example of this is building effective study habits. And here's some advice on intense study sessions from the University of Ohio. So you can start by setting a goal for 1 to 2 minutes. Decide what you're going to accomplish in this study session, and then study for maybe 30 to 50 minutes. Interact with the material, go through it, organize it, concept map it, summarize it, notes on it. Give yourself a reward for 5 to 10 minutes. A walk, a break, listen to some music, get a snack, anything that takes your conscious mind off it while you're still absorbing, and then critically review it for 5 minutes. Go back and summarize, wrap up what you've looked with. So that's going to be something like an hour's study session. And intense study sessions like this are designed to work the way your brain learns best. Short, focused increments. Do students generally know that? Well, it's up to us as teachers to help them build the awareness and start exploring for themselves how they can learn. And that brings us to the third one, the third skill, time management. Probably the most important and probably the hardest to teach. So the University of Waterloo says, if I can pass on only one piece of advice, it's to tell you that the most important life skill you'll ever learn is time management. It's a skill you need for almost anything that you do. As we said before, university students are not going to be told what to do by their teachers. That means they've got to plan, prioritize, and manage their own schedules. Now, all of us have our own approaches to meeting deadlines. Some people like to leave it to the last minute to add stress to their work effectiveness. Others carefully complete their work as soon as it's assigned. There's not one way that works for everybody. But if left entirely to their own instincts, many students will quickly lose control of their workload. And that's why awareness building activities are such a crucial step. They will help students recognize their own strengths and weaknesses in all these 3 key areas and prepare strategies for overcoming the issues. So to conclude, we've got to say that it's our duty to create awareness amongst students of the kind of academic study skills that are going to make their lives manageable. What don't they know? Everybody's nervous about the prospect of going to university for the first time. But for many of us, and certainly including today's students, they just don't know what to be nervous about. Do they know what critical thinking is? Maybe not, and certainly not in the depth that they do. Will need to. Do they know how inefficiently they currently study? Probably not. They just many of them do what they've just been told. Have they developed the resourcefulness they need to solve the problems that will come up? Probably not. And with all of these, the first problem is building awareness, getting them to know what they don't know. Now I'm going to hand over to Charlotte now, who's going to look at some practical activities that you can use with your students to work on the areas that we've just chatted about. Charlotte?
Right. Thank you, Adrian. So now we've just looked at the challenges that students may face in universities and some suggestions to help with them. Now I'm going to show you how some practical exercises can help students attain the study skills they required. So let's jump to the program. Okay. So this is the Study Skill Success Program. When learners first arrive here, they will be prompted with this introduction video. And in the video, there's a teacher telling them what this program is about and what they will learn from it. So let's have a look at the video together.
Welcome to Study Skills Success, a program to help you develop your academic study skills. As you move into the final years of school and then to university, studying becomes more demanding. So which skills can help you be a more effective learner? Study Skills Success covers the 10 most important areas of study skills. Reading, writing, speaking and listening, yes, but also key skills you need to develop, like independent learning, critical thinking, and research. You will get lots of opportunities to practice in the interactive activities in each unit. You will work on extracts from a wide range of sources, including books, articles, lectures, and seminars. And in each unit, each skill is clearly explained and illustrated. Study skill success will build your confidence and enable you to become a much more effective academic learner.
Okay, so study skill success will build your confidence and enable you to become a much more effective academic learner. So let's see how the program works this magic. So here we are at the home screen of Study Skill Success. There are 10 modules, which are the 10 most important study skills that a university student would need, including the basic 4 skills and also some other study skills that they will need in university, such as critical thinking and research skills. Now, Adrian just identified 3 key academic challenges of independent learning, which are critical thinking, resourcefulness, and time management, which can all be found in the program. And time management was said to be one of the most important life skills that one would need. So since time is limited today, and I have to manage it well, I will only focus on 2 of the 3 challenges that we've just looked at, which are critical thinking and resourcefulness, and see how this program helps students tackle them. Okay, so let's have a look at the critical thinking module. In each unit, it starts with the starting out video with the teacher telling you what this unit is about. So let's have a look at the teacher, see how what he's going to say about the critical thinking module.
Talk to any university professor and they will say, my students aren't good enough at critical thinking. But what is critical thinking? It means not taking things at face value. So, for example, if you hear a politician talking on the radio or on TV, do you believe everything they say?
Okay, so not taking things at face value. And do you believe everything the politicians say? So after watching this video, we can then move on to the practice zone. So in here, we can find exercises that help with 4 main areas in this unit, which are understanding the argument, evaluating the evidence, recognizing problems with an argument, and finally avoiding plagiarism. So let's have a look at this flawed logic exercise. When I first arrive in this exercise, I can click on this You Will button, and I will see the learning objectives of this activity. For example, in this one, I will have to listen to some opinions about food and obesity, identify errors in the logic, and learn about some of the most common flaws in logic. So let's do one question together. So there are 2 statements that I have to listen to, and then after listening to them, I will have to decide which one is flawed. So let's hear it together.
A. The obesity problem in America is clearly growing. I lived in Baltimore 10 years ago. When I went back last year, several of my friends were obese.
B. According to surveys from the National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention, obesity rates in America have increased in the last 10 years.
Okay, so after listening to the 2 statements, I think maybe A is flawed. So then I clicked on it and I will have an instant feedback telling me if I'm right or wrong and also the reason why. Okay, so let's have a look at the next exercise. In the next exercise, I will have to listen and read the longer text, and it's more complicated, which are 2 blocks. And I have to identify the flaw of logic in each paragraph and make notes in it. So after I finish with them, I can click on this feedback button to review my answers to see if I'm right or wrong. Now, the good things about these exercises are, first of all, students can listen to a native speaker speaking so as to get them familiarized with listening to different accents. And also they receive instant feedback immediately after doing the exercises. Okay, so in each module, the last activity is my learning records. So to do this activity, first of all, I will have to go to the resource bank to download the My Learning Record sheets. Okay, so in these sheets, I can look down and review if I have managed to learn and use the skills I've learned in this unit. So this is for the students to review their studies. Okay, so also in the resource bank, you can see here, you can find all of the study sheets of this module and also the transcripts for the video and the audios if you couldn't follow the tracks. Okay, so now that we have looked at the critical thinking exercise, Adrian also mentioned that building resourcefulness is an important skill, which means to solve and work out something by yourself. And to do it, it often requires researching. And this is something inevitable in any university life. So let's have a look at the research module and see how to make students' life easier when it comes to doing research. So again, let's have a look at the video and then starting our video.
Doing research is easy thanks to the internet, isn't it? Just key a couple of words into your search engine and you instantly get millions of results. Problem solved. Or is it? You have millions of results, but you obviously can't read them all. How do you know which are relevant to your research or which are academically reliable?
Okay, so how do you know which results are relevant to your research or academically reliable? So let's have a look at how do I learn all these with exercises. In this module, it tells us about research process like how to search with keywords, evaluating relevant websites, and also note-taking skills and citation. So let's have a look at evaluating websites activity. It is very common nowadays to use internet search engine. So Google is even a word now. If you want to look up something, just Google it. However, how do we decide what sources or what websites are reliable and relevant? So let's have a look at what do I have to learn in this exercise. I will have to read an article about the advantages and disadvantages of internet searches and learn how to evaluate websites. Okay, so now that I have this an article on my left and the questions on my right, let's do two questions together. So let's say I have read this article and I have to decide with so many options from an internet search, it is difficult to identify the most something results. Like I would say reliable. And the next one, it is difficult to access the something of the information from an internet search. So maybe credibility. Okay, then I can check my answers and I see I got one right and one wrong. And I can show the answers and also see the feedback one by one in this exercise. I can refer back to the article to see where I can find the answers. Okay, so let's see what is the next exercise. So in this one, I will have to evaluate some real websites. I will have to go to these 4 websites here and evaluate the relevance of these websites. So first of all, I will have to scroll down to download these worksheets. And in these worksheets, I will have to follow all of the questions in here, which help me identify which websites are reliable. Okay, so this is actually a very good activity for students to jump to a real website and read some authentic English. And this is something different than just staying in a program, and it's more engaging to them. Okay, so we have done quite a few exercises in the program. And while we are working through the program is actually monitoring our activities. You can see in the top right corner, there's a progress report button. So in here, I can see the coverage of the exercises, like how many exercises I have done or haven't done. And also I can compare to all the other learners who are also using this program in the world. And also I can see in the analysis pie chart to see how much time I've spent on different modules to help with my review and to plan my studies better. And not only students, but teachers, they can also see all of these progress and the results of their students on a separate admin panel to keep track of their activities. And also, since the program works on all devices, laptops and tablets or mobile phones, so students can work on it like at home, at school, or even when they're taking a bath. So they can literally study anytime, anywhere. So I think that's all I want to share with you today. I will now hand it back to Katharina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte, and thank you, Adrian, as well. So I think we just wanted to show a slide, thank you, with our, so here are just our contact details that you're welcome to take down if you have any questions later. And also, if you see at the bottom, there's a link. So we have a webinar website that's worth having a look at with some of the information that you've heard about today, some of the documents, some of the links to the websites that are relevant. And also here, you can access the program, the full program, until the end of this month for free. The link is also in the chat if you want to write it down at this stage. So yeah, I recommend you have a look at this website after our session today. So we've got time for some questions, and since we are a small group, you are actually very welcome to unmute yourself and ask the question live if you would like to do so. Thanks, Petula. Does anyone? Yep.
Hi, Petula McCartney at TAFE Queensland. We teach a diploma of TESOL and a certificate 4 of TESOL. And I guess my question would be, how do we get the horse to the trough? How do we get these students to participate in this great thing that you've designed or have evolved?
It's all about if they scare them into it. It's what they if they can realize that this is all about making their life either easier or simply manageable, then suddenly, instead of being a terrible chore to spend more time studying study skills, you suddenly think of it as, well, you know, an hour spent doing this is going to save me days of panic over my essays or lab reports or whatever. But easy to say, not necessarily practical. I mean, do you see the students often? Can you sort of use?
No, they actually study online, their theory online, and so something like this I see as would absolutely value add to what we offer, because you've identified in your explanation, thank you, Charlotte, it was very thorough and good, exactly the issues that happen unbeknown to me and my team. We find these issues out after the fact when they put in an assessment and they haven't even looked at supplementary resources. They haven't even typed a few words into Google. And I just think you could probably potentially, well, first of all, how long would it take to do the whole course, do you think, if a student did all parts?
There's a lot in it. There's something like 10 units. That's right, Charlotte? And most of them sort of have something like 4 sections. So, the critical thinking one will have, several different aspects to it, the avoiding plagiarism. But I think one thing that can trigger your sort of students, or the way that you are interacting with your students, is sort of like little social media posts where if you had to hand in an essay today, would you have thought about this?
Yeah.
And then with a link, you can sort of link directly to a specific unit,
Right.
like critical thinking, or, I've just been looking at some essays, there's going to be some black marks for copying. Have you checked out avoiding plagiarism?
Yeah.
So little nudges like that might be something that's reasonably easy to send out by email, or however your LMS lets you dispatch chat and send material.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And, I can really see the value in this because 50 hours of study. So
Okay, yeah.
that's, it's worth it if it would be able to empower the students to come to a point of being critical thinkers and self-responsible and organized. And there's so many things in that course material that you just showed me that are, they tick all of the difficulties that our students seem to have that feed into their lack of success. And also then it, of course, doubles our workload because they're vocational courses, so we have to give them a second opportunity to resubmit, and we'll even give them a third if we, for some reasonable reason, such as they're studying ESL, they are an ESL student themselves, or they have other issues. And we've got a range of students ranging from 18 to, I think our oldest student was 70, but it's across the board. It's not just the beginning transit from high school to uni. It's people that haven't studied for 20 years. And so, yeah, I see it as really valuable. And then I guess the next question would be sort of how do you market it? How do you market the course? So how do we buy it?
Katharina, that's yours.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought it was still more about market to the students. No.
Yeah, no. I could always mandate it.
I was about to say we do have some customers who sort of integrate some of these programs into their independent learning part of the course, and even make it sort of part of the assessment to have completed a certain number of units, or specific to, sort of tailored to each student's needs.
Yeah.
So that's something that for some schools works really well as well. In terms of, I'm happy to get in touch with you after this to let you know more about, pricing and how it all works.
Deliver it.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Like that one you showed about technology, one of the things you highlighted, Charlotte, that's virtually one of our whole units for use technology to teach ESL students. A lot of what was in that is really, if they did your bit, they'd be able to do my bit. Like, what is a real website? How do you identify what's a relevant website, et cetera, et cetera. We've got all of those in our assessments, both for the Cert 4 technology unit and the Diploma EAP unit, English for academic purposes. So yeah, I'm really quite excited. It's such a great program.
Good.
I'm glad you like it. Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for the question, Julia.
Any other questions or comments before we conclude? No? All right. Well, thank you so much for coming, and thank you very much to Adrian and Charlotte, and also Puyi in the background for organizing everything. And yeah, please don't hesitate to get in touch if you have any questions. We'll be very happy to help. So thank you and enjoy your afternoon.